I never thought I would find myself in this situation. My name is Adam, and I'm a prosthetist. For the last several years, I've dedicated my life to designing and fitting prosthetic limbs for wounded veterans. It's a fulfilling job, one that demands integrity and compassion. But despite my dedication to helping others reclaim their mobility, my own life felt like it was teetering on the edge. My wife, Rachel, and I had been married for 7 years, and for most of that time I truly believed we were happy. However, as the months rolled by, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. Rachel had always been the life of the party, affectionate, spontaneous, and sometimes a bit too flirtatious. But lately, she had become distant. It started with her late nights at the office, which she insisted were due to an important project she was spearheading. I could see the number of emails she received had increased, and I actually encouraged her to take on new challenges, thinking it would help her career. But the late nights became more frequent, and she would come home tired and irritable, snapping at me over the smallest things. I brushed it off, attributing it to stress. Then there were the little things I noticed. Her phone would always be face down on the table, a habit she never had before. She would jump when I accidentally brushed against it while reaching for my own. There were whispers of conversations she'd quickly end when I entered the room, and her laughter felt strained, almost forced. I asked her if everything was all right, and she would just roll her eyes, telling me I was being paranoid. "It's just work, Adam. You're being ridiculous," she would say, her tone dismissive. One evening I returned home later than usual after a long day at the clinic. I was exhausted, covered in the dust and sweat from a day spent in the workshop, and all I wanted was to unwind. As I stepped inside, I could hear Rachel talking animatedly on the phone. I paused, half listening as I dropped my bag by the door. She was giggling, a sound I hadn't heard in a while, and it irked me. I reached for a glass of water, still within earshot, and caught snippets of her conversation. "I can't wait to see you again. I've missed you so much," she said, her voice dripping with a kind of excitement I hadn't felt from her in months. My heart sank. I stood frozen, a wave of nausea sweeping over me. Who was she talking to? I wanted to confront her right then and there, but something held me back. Instead, I decided to wait until she hung up. I could feel the anger building in my chest, and when she finally walked into the room, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "Rachel," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "Who were you talking to?" Her expression shifted. For a split second, there was a flicker of panic in her eyes, and then came the forced smile. "Oh, it was just a friend from work," she replied too quickly. "A friend from work who you've missed? Come on, Rachel. That doesn't sound like work talk to me." She rolled her eyes again, looking at me as if I were the one being ridiculous. "Don't start with this, Adam. I told you it's just stress." But I knew it was more than that. I felt the ground shifting beneath me, and in that moment, I decided I needed to dig deeper. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of discovering something monumental, something that would shake the foundation of everything I believed in. Little did I know just how right I would be, and how deeply this would affect not only our marriage but my entire life. As days turned into weeks, the tension between Rachel and me grew palpable. I found myself becoming a detective in my own home, observing her every move, monitoring her phone usage, and even scrolling through our shared calendar for clues. Each late night and secretive phone call gnawed away at my sanity. The laughter that once filled our home now felt like an echo of betrayal, a cruel reminder of what I might end up losing. One afternoon, I returned home early from work, a rare moment that I hoped would allow us some much-needed quality time. I walked into the house, expecting to find Rachel preparing dinner, but instead, the silence was deafening. I called out her name, but no response came. My heart raced as I made my way to our bedroom, and I pushed the door open, half hoping to find her in a good mood. What I found instead sent my world spiraling. There, sprawled across our bed, was Rachel's phone, and it buzzed incessantly with notifications. I hesitated, knowing I was treading dangerous ground, but the curiosity and fear of the unknown propelled me forward. I picked it up, heart pounding, my palms sweaty. The lock screen showed a picture of her and some guy I didn't recognize, arms around each other as they smiled broadly. It was a casual photo, but the way he held her felt intimate and my stomach churned. I unlocked the phone, the passcode was still the same, and instantly I was thrust into a world of messages that confirmed my worst fears. "Can't wait to see you tonight, just the two of us," one text read. Another followed, "I miss your touch, you're everything I need." My heart felt like it was shattering into a million pieces. This was no casual affair. It was an emotional connection, a betrayal that cut deeper than I could have imagined. It was as if I had been punched in the gut and I could barely breathe. I stood frozen, reading through the messages, my mind racing with disbelief and rage. This was the woman who promised to love and cherish me, the woman I had supported through her career and dreams. And now here she was, pouring her heart out to another man. I couldn't hold back the tears that burned at my eyes. I finally had undeniable proof. Just then I heard the garage door open. Rachel was home. Panic surged through me. I quickly tossed the phone back onto the bed and feigned nonchalance as she entered the house. She greeted me with a distracted, "Hey," her eyes darting toward the bedroom, and I knew she sensed something was off. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "How was your day?" She shrugged, a non-committal gesture that only added to my frustration. I watched her closely, waiting for her to mention the phone to acknowledge her betrayal, but she didn't. Instead, she walked into the kitchen, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing between us. "Dinner's almost ready," she called out, and I felt my heart racing again. I couldn't let this go on. I needed to confront her. I followed her into the kitchen where she was chopping vegetables, the rhythmic sound of the knife hitting the cutting board echoing the tension in the air. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, and I took a deep breath, preparing for the confrontation I had been dreading. "Rachel, we need to talk." The words came out more firmly than I intended. She paused, her head snapping to look at me, a mix of confusion and annoyance flickering in her eyes. "About what?" "About your phone. About the messages. About you." I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, mixing with the adrenaline pumping through my veins. "What are you talking about?" She feigned innocence, but I could see the walls she was building around herself. "Don't play dumb. I saw the text, Rachel. I know about him." Her expression shifted from surprise to indignation. "You went through my phone. Seriously, Adam, that's so low." "Low? You think that's low? What's low is cheating on your husband while he's out trying to help those who have lost so much." I could feel the anger boiling over, and I knew I had crossed a line but couldn't stop myself. "Cheating? You don't know anything," she retaliated, her voice rising. "Stop lying. I saw the proof. How long has this been going on?" In that moment I watched as her mask slipped. The anger gave way to something darker, fear, guilt, and desperation all wrapped up in one. "It's not what you think," she stammered, her bravado crumbling. I was ready for her excuses. I was ready to hear her rationalize the irrational. But deep down, I felt the weight of her betrayal settle heavily in my chest. I wanted answers, but I also wanted truth, and I needed to know how she could do this to me. "Please, just tell me what's going on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor in it. Rachel took a deep breath, her walls finally starting to crack. "It's complicated, Adam. I didn't mean for it to happen." "No, you don't get to say that," I interrupted. "You didn't just trip and fall into someone else's arms. You made a choice." The confrontation clawed at every piece of my heart as she stammered through her explanations. Twisting the reality of her actions, I felt the anger morphing into something else, an overwhelming sense of betrayal that was shattering everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust. Rachel's excuses poured out of her like a leaking faucet, each word twisting my insides further. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she insisted, her voice shaking as she tried to find the right words. "I was just feeling lost, Adam. I thought you didn't care anymore. You were so focused on your work." Focused on my work. I couldn't hold back my incredulity. "You think I've been busy helping veterans regain their lives because I don't care about you? I thought I was doing this for us. It's not your fault." She shot back, her voice rising again, but I could see the cracks in her facade. There was an edge of desperation in her tone. "I wanted to feel something, anything, and then he was there." "Who is he?" I demanded, the question hanging heavy between us. "Do I know him? Does he work with you?" "No, it's not like that," she exclaimed, but I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes. He's just someone I met at a conference. I didn't think it would go this far. We only talked at first, but then she paused, looking down, her voice dropping to a whisper. Then it just happened. Rachel, you've been lying to me for months. I felt the anger swelling again, and it was hard to breathe. Every late night, every time you brushed me off. It was all for him. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words seemed to catch in her throat. I didn't want to give her the opportunity to twist this situation any further. You don't get to make excuses for this, I said, my voice firm. You made a choice to betray me. I didn't want to hurt you, she insisted, tears brimming in her eyes. I thought I could handle it. I thought it was just a phase. But it was too late for that. I felt like I was in a fog, and each of her words was a gust of wind trying to clear. Yet it only deepened the confusion. Rachel, this isn't just a phase. You've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. As her tears fell, I stood there, torn between the anger that fueled me and the love that still lingered in the corners of my heart. My mind raced with all the memories we had shared, the laughter, the plans, the dreams of a life together. But now those memories felt tainted, overshadowed by her betrayal. What do you want me to say? She pleaded, her voice cracking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I replied, my voice low and steady. You've broken something that can't just be pieced back together with an apology. You need to understand what you've done. I watched as her expression shifted from remorse to defiance. You don't know what it's like to feel alone, to feel like your partner doesn't even see you anymore. I felt my heart clench at her words. There was some truth in her pain, but the way she had sought comfort in another's arms was unforgivable. And you think I don't care? I've sacrificed so much for us. Do you think I wanted to work long hours and miss out on time with you? I didn't mean to hurt you, she cried out, and in that moment the tears she shed felt like a final plea for understanding. I took a deep breath, my own emotions swirling like a storm. I need time to think, Rachel. I can't do this right now. With that, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her behind in a sea of excuses and tears. I needed space to process what I had just learned, to understand how everything had gone so horribly wrong. My mind was ablaze with thoughts, the pain of her betrayal, the anger boiling within me, and the deep sadness that threatened to swallow me whole. I stepped outside, the cool evening air biting at my skin as I tried to make sense of it all. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a visitor in a life I once loved so deeply. The memories began to flash through my mind. The wedding day, the laughter shared over coffee, the intimate moments where we dreamed about our future together. But those moments felt like a facade now, an illusion shattered by the reality of her infidelity. I walked aimlessly around the block, replaying the confrontation over and over again in my mind. I couldn't understand how she could justify her actions, how she could lie so easily. Did she ever really love me? Or was it all just a convenient cover for her unhappiness? I could feel the weight of every question pressing down on me, and I realized I wasn't just angry at Rachel. I was angry at myself too. Why hadn't I seen the signs? Why hadn't I acted sooner? I felt like an idiot, a fool for trusting her so completely. And yet, even with all the anger and hurt, I still loved her. The thought made me feel sick. As I walked through the empty streets, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it hadn't happened. I needed to figure out what I truly wanted for my future, whether that meant trying to salvage our marriage or cutting my losses and moving on. The road ahead was unclear, but one thing was painfully obvious. Everything had changed, and there was no turning back. After what felt like an eternity, I returned home, trying to gather my thoughts. Rachel was still in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she wiped her face with a towel, likely trying to hide the remnants of her tears. I could see her reflection in the window, and for the first time in a long while it struck me how vulnerable she looked. But vulnerability didn't excuse betrayal, and I had to remind myself of that. Adam, she started, but I held up a hand, cutting her off. I wasn't ready to hear more excuses, and I certainly didn't want to engage in another circular argument. I need space, Rachel. I can't do this right now. My voice was firm, my heart heavy. She turned around to face me, her eyes pleading. Please, just listen to me. I can explain everything. We can work through this. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to work through it. The idea of rebuilding trust felt like trying to construct a house of cards in a windstorm. Everything hung by a thread, and one wrong move would send it crashing down. "I'm not ready to talk about it," I said, my own frustration bubbling to the surface again. "I need to think, I need to figure out what I want." With that, I walked past her, heading towards the living room. I felt her eyes on my back, and part of me wished I could turn around and comfort her, reassure her that everything would be okay. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if it would be. I sank into the couch, staring blankly at the wall. My mind raced with memories of Rachel and me, the hiking trips, the dinners, the quiet moments spent together reading or watching movies. It felt suffocating, like a claustrophobic space filled with illusions. And then there was the man she had cheated with. I didn't even know his name, but I imagined him to be everything I wasn't: funny, charming, and attentive in a way that I had somehow failed to be. My heart burned with anger at the thought. What kind of person could effortlessly swoop in and take my place? I closed my eyes, trying to find some semblance of peace amidst the storm inside. I recalled one moment vividly. Few months ago, when we had sat on the porch together, sipping wine as the sun set over the horizon. Rachel had rested her head on my shoulder, her fingers intertwined with mine, and I had felt an overwhelming sense of contentment. It was as if nothing could ever come between us. But now I realized that I had been naive. I had assumed our love was impenetrable, that it was built on a foundation of trust that could weather any storm. But here we were, faced with a hurricane that had torn through everything we built together. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I barely left the house, spending most of my time in a haze, alternating between anger and sadness. Rachel tried to engage me in conversations, to convince me that we could fix this, but I kept shutting her down. I needed to think, but every time I tried, my mind was flooded with images of her with him. The laughter, the intimacy, the shared secrets. I felt like a ghost in my own life, drifting through the motions but never fully present. One evening, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a half-eaten meal. Rachel had made my favorite dish, but I couldn't bring myself to take a bite. The smell reminded me of happier times, and I felt sick to my stomach. "Adam, can we talk?" Rachel's voice broke through the silence. I looked up at her, seeing the desperation etched all over her face. "What more is there to say, Rachel? You've told me you're sorry and that you want to fix things, but I don't know if I can forgive you." "I understand," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But I really want to make this right. I love you, and I made a terrible mistake." Those words made me ache in a way I hadn't anticipated. "You love me," I scoffed, bitterness creeping into my voice, "because it sure didn't seem like it when you were with him." I know," she shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try. I want to show you that I can be better. I don't want you to just try, Rachel. I want to know that you mean it, that you're committed to making things right. I can't just take your word for it." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling. I'll be an open book. I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." "What do you think counseling will do?" I asked, unable to mask the skepticism in my voice. "It'll help us work through our issues. It'll help you see that I genuinely want to fix this." I leaned back in my chair, considering her words. Part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that we could navigate through the wreckage of our marriage, but another part of me, a more protective part, felt like opening that door could lead to more pain. "I don't know, Rachel, I need time." "I understand," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But please just think about it. I don't want to lose you." As she turned to leave, I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. I didn't want her to suffer. I didn't want to push her away, but I also knew that I couldn't go back to pretending everything was normal. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The darkness felt heavy, and I could hear Rachel's soft breathing from across the room. I knew that I had a monumental decision to make, one that would shape the course of my life. Could I forgive her? Could I find it in my heart to rebuild what had been broken? Or was it time to cut my losses and walk away? The weight of those questions pressed down on me like a vice, and as I drifted into an uneasy sleep, I realized that the road ahead would not be easy. But I had to choose a path, and whatever I decided would come with its own set of consequences. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, and I found myself balancing on a tightrope between anger and love. Rachel was trying her best to show me she was serious about fixing our marriage. She started leaving her phone unlocked, offering to share her whereabouts, and even suggesting we go to couples therapy together. I could see her making an effort, but the shadow of betrayal hung over us, like a dark cloud casting doubts on every interaction. One evening, after another tense day at work, I returned home to find the living room cleared of clutter. Rachel had set up a cozy space with candles and her favorite wine, an attempt to resurrect some semblance of normalcy. She smiled at me as I stepped inside, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could get through this, I thought, if we just tried hard enough. "Hey, I thought we could have a nice dinner together," she said, her voice bright. "Just the two of us." I forced a smile, knowing it was a gesture of goodwill. "Sure, that sounds nice." As we sat down to eat, Rachel tried to engage me in conversation, asking about my day, but I found it difficult to muster enthusiasm. I couldn't shake off the memories of what I had discovered. Every time she laughed, every time she smiled, I was reminded of the man who had taken advantage of her vulnerability. I felt like I was sitting across from a stranger. "Adam, can we talk about us?" she asked, the sudden seriousness in her tone, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Fine," I replied, my voice more curt than I intended. "I know you're still hurt," she began, her eyes searching mine. "But I really want to work on rebuilding what we had. I love you and I don't want to lose you." I felt my heart squeeze at her words, the truth of them both warming and terrifying me. "You say that, but how can I trust you again? How do I know it won't happen again?" "I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I mean it," she pleaded, her voice earnest. "I'm committed to making this work. I'll be an open book. You can check my phone anytime, ask me where I am. I want you to feel secure." A part of me wanted to latch onto her sincerity, to believe that we could fix this, but another part of me was screaming to walk away, to protect myself from further heartache. "I appreciate that, Rachel, but it's not just about trust. It's about the foundation we built together. And it got shattered, I know," she interjected, her voice shaking. "But I want to rebuild it stronger. Please let me show you." I looked at her, really looked at her. The tears in her eyes felt genuine, and in that moment I saw the woman I fell in love with, the woman who had stood by my side through thick and thin. But I also saw the betrayal, the shattered trust that had replaced the love we once shared. "I don't know, Rachel," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I really don't." We finished dinner in silence, the weight of unspoken thoughts hanging over us. Afterward, I excused myself, needing to clear my head. I grabbed my jacket and decided to take a walk around the neighborhood, hoping that the fresh air would bring clarity. As I walked, memories flooded my mind. Our first date, the way she laughed at my silly jokes, the way she had danced with me under the stars on our wedding night. I felt a pang of longing, but also a wave of anger for how easily those moments had been tainted by her choice to betray me. I thought about the man who had come between us. Jealousy surged through me at the thought. Of him, who was he? Did he know I existed? Did he even care? I felt like I was losing a part of myself to thoughts of him, and I hated it. By the time I returned home, I was exhausted. Rachel was waiting for me in the living room, her eyes filled with concern. "Adam, I'm sorry if I pushed too hard. I don't want to lose you." "I know," I replied, my heart heavy. "I just need time to think. This is a lot to process, and I don't want to rush into anything." "Take all the time you need," she said softly, relief washing over her face. "I'll be here waiting for you." Her words felt both comforting and suffocating at the same time. I needed space to breathe, to sort through my feelings, but I also needed her presence as a reminder of the love we had shared. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I knew I had to make a decision soon. The uncertainty was eating away at me, and I couldn't let it linger indefinitely. I had to choose between allowing Rachel back into my heart or walking away for good. As the days turned into another week, I found myself caught in a cycle of hope and despair. Rachel was doing everything she could to prove her dedication, attending counseling sessions, and even participating in activities we used to love together, cooking, hiking, and watching our favorite shows. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage was like a fragile glass sculpture, one wrong move away from shattering completely. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, a scene came on that reminded me of our early days together. I felt a bittersweet ache in my chest, memories flooding my mind. I turned to Rachel, and for the first time in a while I actually saw her, the woman I loved, the woman I had vowed to stand by. "Rachel, do you remember that night we went to that little Italian restaurant?" I asked, my heart racing. "The one where you tripped over your own feet and spilled spaghetti all over yourself." She laughed softly, a genuine sound that warmed my heart. "How could I forget? You were so sweet about it, helping me clean up and making jokes to lighten the mood." "Yeah, and you ended up ordering dessert for both of us to make up for it," I added, smiling at the memory. As we reminisced about the past, I felt the ice around my heart begin to crack, but the thought of the betrayal loomed large, a reminder of what I had lost. "Adam," Rachel said, her voice serious as she looked at me, "I know I've hurt you. I know I've broken your trust. But I want to start fresh, to build new memories together. I'm committed to doing everything it takes." "I want that too," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But I need to know that you mean it, that you'll fight for us every single day." "I will," she promised, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my heart race. "I'll show you, Adam. I'll make you believe in us again." That was the moment I realized I was at a crossroads. I could either cling to the anger and hurt or take a leap of faith and allow myself to trust her again. But could I truly let go of the past? It was a monumental decision, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, knowing that whatever choice I made would come with its own set of consequences. I would either choose to forgive and rebuild, or I would walk away and reclaim my freedom. The choice was mine, and it was time to confront it head-on. The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty, but also glimmers of hope. Rachel continued to put in the effort, and I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. We laughed together, cooked meals side by side, and even went for long walks in the evenings. But every time I felt myself getting comfortable, the memories of her betrayal would creep back in, reminding me of the deep chasm that still existed between us. One day, after another therapy session, Rachel and I sat in a local cafe, sipping coffee and discussing what we had learned. She was animated, speaking passionately about the importance of communication, vulnerability, and honesty. But as I listened, I couldn't shake the feeling that while she was trying to rebuild our relationship, I was still stuck in the past, grappling with the hurt and betrayal. "Adam, I really believe we can get through this together," Rachel said, her eyes searching mine. "I want to strengthen our bond and create a new foundation built on trust." "I want that too," I replied, my heart heavy. "But it's hard for me to forget the hurt. Every time I think about it, I feel this wall going up again." She nodded, her expression understanding. "I know it will take time, but I promise I'll be patient. I'll show you that I can be the partner you need." That was the moment I decided I needed to make a choice. The lingering doubts weighed heavily on my mind, and I realized that if I wanted to move forward, I had to let go of the anger that held me captive. I had to either commit to rebuilding our marriage or let go completely. "Rachel," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. And while I appreciate everything you're doing to make things right, I also need to be honest with myself." "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone cautious. "I think I need a little more time." The words felt heavy on my tongue, but I knew it was necessary. "I want to forgive you, I really do, but right now it feels like I'm forcing myself to ignore the hurt instead of addressing it." Rachel's face fell, and I could see the disappointment wash over her. "Adam, I understand, but I promise I'm committed to this. I'll keep working on myself, on us. Just give me a chance. I need a little distance, Rachel. I need to figure out if we can recover from this. I don't want to rush into anything just because it feels comfortable in the moment." Tears filled her eyes, and I felt a pang of guilt. "I get it, I really do." She took a deep breath, attempting to compose herself. "But please know that I will be here waiting. I don't want to lose you." That evening, I moved into the guest room to give us both space to breathe. It felt strange to be sleeping apart after years of sharing a bed, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to think clearly and reflect on the path ahead without the constant reminder of her presence. In the quiet of the night, lying in the unfamiliar bed, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. The distance allowed me to clear my mind and think about what I really wanted. I thought of all the love we had shared, the laughter, the dreams, the life we had built together. And I also thought of the betrayal, the shattered trust that had turned my world upside down. After a few days of solitude, I found myself at a crossroads once again. I realized that if I wanted to salvage our marriage, I had to embrace the uncertainty. I had to allow myself to be vulnerable again and trust Rachel to prove she was worthy of that trust. With this newfound clarity, I returned to the main bedroom and found Rachel sitting on the edge of the bed, her face a mixture of hope and fear. "Hey," I said softly, my heart racing. "Can we talk?" "Of course," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I've thought about everything," I began, taking a deep breath. "I want to try again, but that means we both have to commit to this fully. I want to rebuild our marriage to create new memories, but we have to be honest with each other, no more secrets." Rachel's eyes lit up with hope, and I could see the relief wash over her. "Yes, I will do whatever it takes, I promise. But I need to set some boundaries," I continued, feeling the weight of my decisions. "We'll need to communicate openly, and I need you to be patient with me. It's going to take time for me to fully trust again." "I'll wait for as long as it takes," she promised sincerely. "I love you, Adam. I've made a terrible mistake, but I want to show you that I can be better." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope rekindle in my heart. I realized that while the road ahead wouldn't be easy, it was a journey worth taking. We would have to rebuild from the ground up, brick by brick, and confront the ghosts of our past, but the desire to love and be loved was stronger than the fear of betrayal. As we sat together, I took her hand in mine, feeling the warmth radiating between us. I intended to embark on this journey of healing together, slowly allowing the wounds to mend. And though there would be challenges ahead, I felt ready to face them with Rachel by my side. In the end, I learned that love is not about perfection. It's about resilience. It's about facing the storms together, even when the winds threaten to tear you apart. And though our marriage had been tested, I believed we could emerge stronger, rebuilt with integrity, just like the prosthetic limbs I crafted for those brave veterans. Rehabilitation began with integrity, and so too would our love.